Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Guys, I hope everyone is doing okay. I decided to do another one tonight because I was bugged and annoyed greatly by what I saw when I looked across the pond. So let me check my volume first before we step in. Guys, you will notice that there is no super chat at the bottom of this video. YouTube has demonetized all of my videos on my entire channel for a month. No, I do not have a copyright strike. No, I do not have a community violation. They said I was copying videos without a copyright strike. That's pretty interesting. I've sent word in some way, but there's no way to appeal this. You can only accept this. So you will see at the bottom a new crawler. Why is that there? That crawler is wrong. That crawler is very wrong. Yeah, that crawler is wrong. And my system essentially got a little weirded up. Nevertheless. Damn. Alright, yeah, that crawler is wrong. That crawler should not say that because there is no coin to drop. So let's get rid of that crawler. What the... Damn it. I have a new system, guys. I'm sorry. I updated that image, and for whatever reason, the image went back to its old image, which is weird. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. Nevertheless, at the bottom there, in the description box, instead of the super chat, what you will find is an alternative to super chat that would allow you to make the Starship Enterprise fly across the screen. It's not drop a coin. It's make the Starship Enterprise fly across the screen. It's in the bottom in the description box itself. This was fixed on the last video, but apparently when I started this video, it somehow screwed up between the process. Alright, screw it. Let's just go with it. It's not a coin. It's not a tip jar and a coin. It's essentially Starship Enterprise will go flying across the screen. Shout out to Baltazar for sending me that particular bit of what is it called? Oh, unless link still works. Yeah, the link should work. Exaggerated, but pretty damn accurate. You didn't see anything? Oh, what's going on? What's going on? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? All right, hold on. Maybe it's too big. Baltazar, the ship might be too big. Okay, I can see it now. Just needed to refresh. All right, maybe I'm not seeing it. They can work as fast. All right, so let's just go into it. I need to figure out what's going on. Something has changed between the time I close this and the time I reopen this, and I'm not sure what it is, if I'm being honest. All right, let's start. So Jeremy Corbyn, I don't necessarily know him, but Jeremy Corbyn, as far as I can tell, doesn't have a racist bone in his body. Not a bone, not a cell, not a cluster of cells, not tissues, nothing. Not a corpuscle of blood. As far as a person can be, at least from the standpoint of what is observable from the human eye and perception, I see no racism in Jeremy Corbyn. And yet, this man, who has shown no propensity at all for racism, is being attacked viciously as an anti-Semitic, a Jew hater. Anti-Semite. Called him a fucking anti-Semite at that. What do you have to show for it? Nothing. Squat. Nada. The only thing that they have to show for it is that he won't sign on to this bogus definition of anti-Semitism. He won't sign on to that definition of anti-Semitism because that definition prevents him from criticizing Israel, which is where all of this gets back to. This goes in two parts. One, it's the criticism of Israel and the defense of Palestine by Jeremy Corbyn. That's the first point. And the second point has to do with them being terrified that he is going to take power with that disposition towards Palestine. Not just take power, the Blairites are also terrified of this. And they've been hitting him with a level of hysteria about anti-Semitism. Craig Murray, he used to be, Uzbekistan, a foreign correspondent. Not a correspondent, a foreign diplomat. I think it's Uzbekistan or something to that effect. I could be wrong with it, but his site is amazing. Craig Murray sends this damning indictment to the hysteria and the people who are pushing this hysteria. It is an amazing, amazing article. And I'm going to summarize it because I love the way he gets this across from the indictment of the media itself. And let me make sure, let me nail down who Craig Murray is. Yes, he's an author. But who else? Because me saying this doesn't necessarily get anything across to you. But nevertheless, if I'm not mistaken, okay, right here. All right. My worldview changed forever when after 20 years in a foreign office, I saw colleagues I knew I liked go all along with Britain's complicity in the most terrible tortures and detailed stunningly in their recent Parliamentary Intelligence and Security Committee report. Now, this report that he's talking about is a report that was released that Theresa May tried to curtail. And even with her trying to curtail it, what came up in that report was damning. The UK was working with organizations that was allowing torture and, in some cases, was close to and received information from torture. This is a big deal. Now, in America, we tortured some folks and we just moved on. It wasn't a big deal in the United States, but in Britain, this should have been somewhat explosive. This came out in a parliamentary report. Even in the report, the interesting part in the report, the guy says the government tried to prevent him from getting certain information and speaking to certain assets. Yet, the information that he put in the report in and of itself was still damning. Balthazar, yeah, I think I might have accidentally swapped scenes. But it's okay. I'll get it straight. When I left the console, I might have changed it by accident. All right, so I'm going to give a summary. Essentially, what he makes the point is, he says, as he was a foreign correspondent, and he was going through this thing of seeing the Foreign Office. Well, I just read it. I don't want to. It's not all that long. Let's see. Display capture. Here we are. They also went along with keeping the policy secret, deliberately disregarding all normal record-taking procedures to the extent the committee noted. We note that we have not seen the minutes of these meetings either. This causes us great concern. Policy discussions on such an important issue should have been minuted. We support Mr. Murray's own conclusion that were it not for his actions, these matters may never have come to light. Yeah, I think he was a diplomat. The people doing these things were not ordinarily bad. They were just trying to keep their jobs, comforting themselves with the thought that they were only civil servants obeying orders. Many were also actuated by the nasty patriotism that grips during the time of war, as we invaded Iraq and Afghanistan. Almost nobody in the FCO, I guess Correspondence Office? I don't know what the C stands for, but FCO, stood up against torture or against the illegal war. Elizabeth Wilmshurst, Carney Ross, and I were the only ones to leave over it. I then had still more mortifying experiences of the Foreign Office seeking to punish my dissent by bringing up a series of accusations of gross misconduct, some of them criminal, against me. The people bringing the accusations knew full well they were false. The people investigating them knew they were false. From about day 2, but I was put through a hellish 6 months of trial by media before being acquitted of all the original counts. Found guilty by revealing the charges whose existence was an official secret. I love that. That's amazing. Found guilty of revealing the charges whose existence was an official secret. The people did this to me were people that I knew. I had served as first secretary in the British Embassy in Poland and bumped up startling against the history of the Holocaust at that time, including through the involvement of an organization organizing the commemoration of the 50th anniversary. Jesus Christ, it's getting late. I had served as first secretary in the British Embassy in Poland and bumped up startlingly against the history of the Holocaust in the first time, including the involvement with organizing the commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. What had struck me most forcibly was the sheer scale of the Holocaust operation, the tens of thousands of people who had been complicit in administrating it. I could never understand how this could happen until I saw ordinary, decent people in the FCO facilitate extraordinary rendition and torture. Then I understood for the first time the banality of evil, or perhaps more precisely, the ubiquity of evil. Of course, I'm not comparing the scale of what happened to the Holocaust, but evil can operate on different scales. Now, this is a fascinating lead up, because what he's making a very particular point here. You can say Hitler is horrible and Hitler is a horrible person. That is true. What about the other tens of thousands of people, or millions, that were involved in making it work? Are all of those people also evil? Now, he compares this to the scale of what was taking place in Britain, saying all of these people were involved in torture. All of these people were renditioning. You had all of these people who knew and stood by and did nothing, just doing their jobs and keeping their heads down. He's right. He's right. Were all of those people evil? And to some degree, the answer is, to some degree, all of us are. Nobody is incorruptible on this front. Now, the case that he's making here is there were very few people who had the, you could say, nerve to step down. And him, being one of those people, was punished for stepping down, for taking a principled stand and saying, look, I don't want to participate in this torture and rendition stuff. I'm out. And for him to be out, they tried to punish him for it, essentially punishing dissent. He's making this point that the people involved in the process weren't necessarily evil, but they were functioning within a system and wanted to keep their heads down and just do the job that that system required them to do. Now, from that, look at where he goes with this, because I love where he turns this. It's an interesting thing. I believe I can see it again today. I do not believe that the majority of journalists in the BBC who pump out a continual stream of Corbyn as anti-Semite propaganda believe in their hearts that Corbyn is a racist at all. They are just doing their jobs, which is to help the BBC avert the prospect of a radical government in the UK threatening the massive wealth share of the global elite. They would argue that they're just reporting what others say, but it is of course the selection of what they report and how they report it which reflects their agenda. Essentially, there's no such thing as objectivity. If you're choosing to report stories in a particular way, you're taking a perspective. And based on the stories that you report, we can tell you a perspective. The truth, of which I am certain, is this. If there genuinely was a claimed existential threat to Jews in Britain, of the type which engulfed Europe's Jews in the 1930s, Jeremy Corbyn, Billy Bragg, Roger Waters, and I, may humbly add myself, will be among the few who would die alongside them in the barricades resisting. Yet, these are today loudly called anti-Semites for supporting the right to oppose oppression of Palestinians. The journalists currently promoting those accusations, if it came to the crunch, would be polishing state propaganda and civil servants writing railway dockets. That is how it works. I've seen it close up. I love this point. Those journalists that cozy up to power in this way will be the same journalists who would be essentially writing railway tickets, sending Jews off to Auschwitz. Think Hunger Games. The journalists will be the ones who are out there saying, oh, that Candace, that stupid little girl who wants economic liberty or liberty for the people of her country. Oh, how crazy and sad she is. Those are the journalists. The people who are attacking Jeremy Corbyn right now are the same people who would be doing that. That's his point. They said they're just doing their jobs. But ultimately, all of these people are millionaires. All of these people are of a particular class, a demographic. And they are terrified that if Jeremy Corbyn gets in, the status quo to which they've become so accustomed and so cozy will somehow be changed. Again, as you said, they say we're reporting the news. This is the news. People are calling him an anti-Semite. We're just reporting that people are calling him an anti-Semite. No, we don't have anything to make this up, to back this up. Nothing. But we're going to call him an anti-Semite. Is there anything that you could say he said, point to anything that he did? No, not so much. He keeps supporting Palestinians, and he doesn't want to essentially acquiesce to stop attacking Israel. You know, because when it murders a lot of people, you shouldn't be able to attack it. Look, all of this is to shut Corbyn up. All of this is to try to shut Corbyn down. The catch is, are the British people falling for it? I don't know. And my hope will be no. The idea that Jeremy Corbyn is racist is utterly nonsense. So, I'm not going to keep this one long, but this has been nonsense. And they've been streaming this nonsense out for the past, it's been going on for weeks now. Hodge screaming like a maniac, calling a man an anti-Semite. There needs to be consequences for that. There needs to be consequences. Let me see. Make sure I haven't missed anything. Have you heard of Paul Cockshott? He's a computer scientist advocating for a moneyless and democratically planned socialist economic system. He makes videos on YouTube too. Fuck YouTube and keep up the good fight, Jamal. I would look for him. Paul Cockshott. That's hilarious. I love that name. Cockshott. That's so sexist of a name. First socialist. I'm sorry. I'm laughing at the name, but that's awesome. Israeli Zionists are creating problems all over the world. You know, Jay Scott, the wild part about that is the criticism. Here's the thing. If they're indeed anti-Semitics on the left, it's not from a natural thing of racism. And I know that sounds weird. It's from Israel. Israel is conflating Jews and Israel. Meaning this idea of state versus your kind of, you can say, identity or religious preference, depending on which way you want to describe Jew, in this case, Jewish. They're making that conflation. Lefties may look at this and may be pissed off at Jews for the things that Israel is doing. The conflation is taking place, yes, but the conflation to some degree is taking place based on the things that Netanyahu and the state is saying and doing. I mean, at this point, they're calling themselves a quote-unquote Jewish state, as if they represent all Jews. They do not. I'm sorry, they do not. But the problem is, whether they do or don't, ultimately you've ended up in a situation where people are making that conflation of Jewish state, Jewish, and immediately going with this idea that the actions that Israel is taking is somehow this kind of, it's almost like being conflated to just the religion itself of Jews. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. Let's see. They're playing a very unsubtle language game. Yes, they are playing a very unsubtle language game. Leopard wants to call in. Yeah. Leopard says the same thing every time he calls in. He'll be good. You're lubing and stretching your bunghole. Yeah, that's okay. I want to pass on that. Alfonso Lepulse. Meant to use the same word in both examples, controlled or owned. Oops, I blame the jinn. You blame the jinn. I meant hard right Israeli. Yeah, Bo, give it up. It's the same. It's the same thing. This Israel apology. Oh, we murder people, but what about other people? Okay, I understand. If you go into the editor mode and click tip announcement source widget, it'll show up. You can resize by dragging the corner box. Let's see. Oh, so I see. So you're saying that the problem was the size of the alert itself. Yeah, I'll do it after this one, Baltazar. I had it at one point. It was doing okay. I needed to check. I didn't check it. No, there was nothing wrong with it last time I did this. There was nothing wrong. I checked it once before, but I'll check it again after this. I have another video after this one. Sent you an email about the French stuff. I still have hopes you'll cover it one day. Catalyst, I didn't see an email about the French stuff. Are you sure you sent it to the right account? It's jamalbiz@gmail.com. It's truly sad to see history repeating in reverse like that. What do you mean, Adore Pariah? For which one? History repeating in reverse? What do you mean, my man? Oh, I see what you mean. You're talking about the Nazi stuff. Yeah. I sent another one with my other email. All right, Catalyst. I need to know your email because French stuff. I might have missed it. I didn't see anything for France. Apologies, Jamal. It's 4 a.m. here in the UK, the real UK, not London. So I'm not making much sense. No, dude, you're fine. You're fine. I wonder if people will come out like Iraq to protest the Iran up to war. It's weird, but it doesn't, it's strange. Tucker Carlson, I mean, some people on the right have been against the war thing, but I don't know if those people would necessarily come out against it if they are, if they're Trump supporters. Meaning, if Trump is ramping up for a war, would they be okay with the war with Iran if Trump does it? Meaning, I don't necessarily attribute any values to him in this way. But we'll see. Andy Quinn. If taking pro-Palestinian stance leads to label to anti-Semitic, why are politicians on the right not called out as anti-Muslim for being pro-Israeli? Because this country is a pro-Israeli country. It has nothing to do with right and wrong. It has to do with this country is a friend of ours. They're political allies, or at the very least, we give them billions of dollars. That's enough. That's enough where it goes. The media doesn't necessarily look at this stuff through a fair lens. They look at it purely through a single lens. That's all. That's the reason why. Israel basically became the molested child that grew up to be one of the offenders themselves. Yeah. The molester that became the molester. Yeah. A dingo ate my baby. Jamal, I sent you a fucking funny weed song, Christmas Every Day of the Year by Nellie McKay. I think I got that. I do think I got that. I thought I have one for Texas and USA. This actually is a good way to make a conversation for how aligning arcs are very different than normal citizens or corporate office, regardless of what label you give them, and what a good way to cut down racist claims. Well, in their case, I mean, they're going with this idea that because he's pro-Palestinian, that he's somehow anti-Semitic. Not so much. And fortunately, Corbyn holds his shape, so he's not necessarily bending to this. Good. BBC are anti-Corbyn because they're pro-status quo. Yes, Blair was fine because he wasn't a threat to neoliberalism. Yes, that's true. That is true. That is very, very true. As bold like a leopard, dude, you want to take this conversation into this kind of weird Orwellian Israel, the conversation. The conversation is somewhat stilted because you say the same thing all the time, and the answer is always the same. You're murdering people. You guys are murdering babies. You're gassing babies. And your answer to the gassing of babies and stuff is, what about Nicaragua? This country, the United States, is attacking multiple countries. Many of the problems that we have around the world is directly related to the foreign policy associated with the billions of dollars and the resources that we give to Israel while they colonize and steal land against international law for Palestinians. Now, if we're having a conversation about your country and the only thing you can say is, what about Nicaragua? You've lost the conversation. You've immediately lost that conversation. I'm just saying, I don't know enough about what's taking place in Nicaragua to have a decent conversation about Nicaragua. I do know a decent amount of what's taking place between the United States, Israel, the area that's known as Palestine that's being eaten away. And I don't know a defense for why gassing babies is okay. I'm just saying. The most anti-Semitic thing happening in Israel is the Israelis forcing forces showing the world what Jews do by giving Jews a terrible reputation. Yeah. Jewish state. I wouldn't be so mad if they'd let me in the big club. I don't know what that means. Order yes. It should be the duty of any group to police their own. People who are pro-Israel should be the first to speak out against criminal actions of the Israeli military and labeling those who... They don't do that. I'm just saying, they don't do that. But we don't do that. I mean, the U.S., no military does that. I don't know any military that does that. You may have one or two people that step out and say it. And by the way, I'm wrong. I am wrong. Order of Chaos. There's a site called Breaking the Set where they have Israeli soldiers that come out who talk about the things that were being done in these campaigns. You can hear it from their own words. You can hear their orders and all this other stuff. So, yeah, pretty much. He wants to call and talk about something completely unrelated to what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's why I don't pick up the phone. That's Danny Knapp. You've nailed the whole crux of the thing. I want to have a conversation about something that's not related to anything that you're talking about right now because you said something about Israel. This is those weird calls that George Galloway gets. Have you ever heard those? Where you would have these Zionists call into George Galloway and they spew nonsense. It's like they're reading from a script and they would go down the script reciting all of the stuff. And it's like you're listening and Galloway would listen and he would... Sometimes he would knock it down, or he would sometimes get across how insane what it is, or just acknowledge you're reading a script. You're reading a script. You're reading a script. It's weird. You're feeding your audience because you're scared of getting No, dude. Your opinion has been put forth like 2 or 3 times. And you put an opinion out that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. That's my issue. That's why I don't pick up. Because it becomes a nonsense conversation, and it's the same conversation, repetitive. So, yeah, you're going to have to kick rocks on us. Adore Pariah. Louis Theroux has great episodes on fundamentalist Zionists. Fundamentalist Zionists. You aren't going to talk about Corbyn, dude. I don't believe that. Elephants on Coke. Adore Pariah. Let's see. Physically burning was a poor choice of words by me. What do you say? Physically burning. All right, I'm going to end this one. Beltazar, I am going to fix this little widget. The Star Trek widget is up. And that Star Trek widget is going to fly before tonight's over with. I'm going to get that working. It was working prior, and then I closed it and reopened it and went tits up. So I'm going to end this here. All right, guys. And just to make a point, Jeremy Corbyn has not one anti-Semitic bone in his body. And all of this, Hodge, the woman who was the tax evader, who essentially was going after Corbyn, calling him a fucking anti-Semite, they had already made plans that she was going to essentially challenge Corbyn for the leadership. Her goal in this was essentially to attack and weaken Corbyn. They sprung this attack at this particular moment because Theresa May is at her weakest and that government collapse at any moment. The Blairites in no way want Corbyn to take power. And in this case, you could say the Israeli lobby, who had a spy in Britain in the first place that was ejected from Britain because he was trying to influence British politics, were to believe that that spy, that influence, left with the spy. I don't believe that. What I do believe is that they're terrified that Corbyn is going to take power and have a disposition towards Palestine that goes contrary to what Israel, the Jewish racist state, wants. So I'll end this one here. All right, guys. If you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks, guys. And